Hello everyone, this is Frank DiMora and today is May 20th of 2014. Now yesterday in my posting I put down some information. It had to do with Daniel 12:4. Let me go over there and show you for 1 second. In yesterday's post, this is what I put up. Daniel 12:4. But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. What we know for sure is that two of the major signs that Jesus would be coming shortly would be, number one, that people would be traveling back and forth, which they have been for a very long time since the birth of the planes. And now people are, by the millions, fly worldwide every single day. So that part, no doubt, has been fulfilled. The second part was specific about the last generation having this knowledge increase. And our generation is the only generation who has fulfilled this prophecy as well. In the last 50 to 60 years, we have gained more knowledge than any generation combined since the creation of Adam and Eve. And so we know for sure we are the chosen generation. But there are other parameters as well, specific signs that also show we are the last days generation. And I'm not going to go into those. I'll be covering those at some other time. But I just want to give you another example. Yesterday I was showing you the news about these scientists that were breaking through. The scientists discover how to turn light into matter after an 80-year quest. So they have already done that, and you can see also that yesterday I gave you some information about the 10 amazing superpowers humans will be able to get from brain implants. But today I want to turn my attention to something even more dramatic that shows how our generation is playing God. Let me show you what I'm talking about in this article. The article is called First Living Thing with Alien DNA Created in the Lab. We are now officially playing God.
First living thing with alien DNA created in the lab. We are now officially playing God. Scientists have succeeded in creating the first organism with alien DNA. In normal DNA, which can be found within the genes of every organism, the twin strands of the double helix are bonded together with four bases, known as T, G, A, and C. In this new organism, the researchers added two new bases, X and Y, creating a new form of DNA that, as far as we know, has never occurred after billions of years of evolution on Earth or elsewhere in the universe. Remarkably, the semi-synthetic alien organism continued to reproduce normally, preserving the new alien DNA during reproduction. In the future, this breakthrough should allow for the creation of highly customized organisms, bacteria, animals, humans that behave in weird and wonderful ways that mundane four-base DNA would never allow. This landmark study, 15 years in the making, was carried out by scientists at the Scripps Research Institute and published in Nature Today. DOI 10.1038/Nature 13314, a semi-synthetic organism with an expanded genetic alphabet. In normal DNA, two separate strands are entwined in a double helix. These strands are connected together by four different bases: adenine, A, thymine, T, cytosine, C, and guanine, G. A always bonds with T, and C always bonds with G, creating a fairly simple language of base pairs AKI, etc. Combine a few dozen base pairs together in a long strand of DNA and you then have a gene, which tells the organism how to produce a certain protein. If you know the sequence of letters down one strand of the helix, you always know what other letter is. This complementarity is the fundamental reason why a DNA helix can be split down the middle, and then have the other half perfectly recreated. There, I just explained in about 150 words two of the most vital processes to all life that we know of. In this new study, the Scripps scientists found a method of inserting a new base pair into the DNA of an E. coli bacterium. These two new bases are represented by the letters X and Y, but the actual chemicals are the rather cryptic D5, 6 and D-nom. A previous in vitro test tube study had shown that these two chemicals were compatible with the enzymes that split and copy DNA. We didn't even think back then that we could move into an organism with this base pair, said Denis Malashev, first author of the paper. Fortunately, he was wrong. The full Nature write-up is worth reading if you want the nitty-gritty details, but here's the short version. First, the scientists genetically engineered an E. coli bacterium to allow the new chemicals, D5-SICS and DNOM, through the cell membrane. Then they inserted a DNA plasmid, a small loop of DNA, that contained a single XY base pair into the bacterium. As long as the new chemicals were available, the bacterium continued to reproduce normally, copying and passing on the new DNA, alien plasmid, and all. In the study, this process seems to have carried on flawlessly for almost a week. Synthetic DNA, with a new XY base pair for now, the XY base pair does nothing, it just sits there in the DNA, waiting to be copied. In this form, it could be used as biological data storage, which, as we've covered previously, could result in hundreds of terabytes of data being stored in a single gram of synthetic, alien DNA. Floyd Romesberg, who led the research, has much grander plans. If you read a book that was written with 4 letters, you're not going to be able to tell many interesting stories, Romesberg says. If you're given more letters, you can invent new words, you can find new ways to use those words, and you can probably tell more interesting stories. Now his target is to find a way of getting the alien DNA to actually do something, such as producing amino acids, and thus proteins, that aren't found in nature. If Romesberg and co. can crack that nut, then it will suddenly become possible to engineer cells that produce proteins that target cancer cells, or special amino acids that help with fluorescent microscopy, or new drugs/gene therapies that do weird and wonderful things. Read, What is Transhumanism, or, What Does It Mean to Be Human? Ultimately, it may even be possible to create a wholly synthetic organism with DNA that contains dozens, or hundreds, of different base pairs that can produce an almost infinitely complex library of amino acids and proteins. At that point, we'd basically be rewriting some 4 billion years of evolution. The organisms and creatures that would arise would be unrecognizable, and be capable of, well, just about anything that a white coat-wearing maniac can dream up.
Now, yesterday I was giving you some information and comparing Babylon and how the people back in Nimrod's time who were building this Tower of Babel thought that they could do anything. And of course, we know the story that God went down there and he dispersed them by changing their language. And the scriptures do tell us in Genesis chapter 11, verse 6, that they were going to be able to do anything, at least that they thought that they could do anything. So now we're in a generation of increased knowledge where people think that they can do anything, including playing God, messing with the DNA, creating something that God did not create. And so just like the Lord saw what the people were doing in Nimrod's generation, the Lord is seeing what this generation is doing as well. But he's also foretold what he was going to do to this generation with the increased knowledge. And we know that this generation would go through a time of turmoil as the world has never seen before during this generation, the generation that's traveling back and forth and has this increased knowledge. And so all I could say is, may sound good to you that they're making new forms of alien DNA. But all this is showing us is the prophecies are coming to pass. We are the increased education of knowledge generation. We're traveling back and forth. We're the drug generation. We saw the nation of Israel being born again. All specific signs. We would see all these things at the same time, including the 200 million man soldier army that would be coming from the east. And we know that China alone has an army of 200 million soldiers. And at the same time, we would be seeing this Euphrates River that's never been dry. We would see this dry up and people would walk across it. And we're seeing that happen right now as well. We're seeing all of the rest of the prophecies coming to place. The weird weather, the intense heat, the flooding, the diseases that are popping up. All of these things is what the Lord told us to look for. And so this DNA, this article about this creation of this DNA, may sound like it's nothing, but believe me, in the scope of prophecy, it is huge, because it's showing us we are definitely close to the second coming of the Lord Jesus Christ.